Wow, what a turnout we got tonight. Everyone, thank you so much for coming into Poe's Magic Theater Online. My name is Vince Wilson, and I am your host. And I'm going to be moderating and producing and directing. Not so much the directing. I think David can handle that himself.
Not so much the directing.
Not so much the directing, yeah. David, start. We're good. See, that's how you direct a online virtual show. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. We still have people coming in. This is called the Killing the Time part, all right, where we try to fill in some space here while we wait for the show to begin. I am your host, Vince Wilson. You're in Poe's Magic Theater Online. We're going to be starting in just a few moments while we wait for people to figure out how Zoom works. There we go. Got some more people coming in. Yeah. People are just bouncing in from the year 1998 when Skype first came out. They were saying, this isn't like Yahoo Messenger at all. I thought this was an AOL portal. And what is this Zoom thing? So they're still getting...
MySpace.
That's right, MySpace. They're still getting used to it. Thank you, everyone coming in. I'd like everyone to be muted, please. All right? As you're coming in, if you're not already muted, mute yourself now. All right, because you are at the same volume as we are, and that is inconvenient for an online show. So please keep yourself muted until we call on you. When we call on you, you may unmute yourself for a volunteer. And David will go into that a little bit more once we make sure that everyone in here who's going to be in here this evening. So once again, I'm your host, Vince Wilson, and welcome to Poe's Magic Theater Online. It's probably not the last time you're going to hear me say that. I'm sure it'll come up again as more people enter the Zoom meeting, trying to figure out how Zoom works for the first time.
And where is Poe's Magic Theater located, Vince?
Poe's Magic Theater. See this bookcase behind me? This is part of the Haunted Library, which is located 500 meters beneath the Lord Baltimore Hotel in downtown Baltimore City, the United States, on the planet Earth in the Milky Way galaxy. Is that specific enough? You know, there's a multiverse. I can go into other places. But thank you all so much for coming here tonight. 500 meters beneath the Lord Baltimore Hotel is the Haunted Library, part of Poe's Magic Theater. And I thank you all for coming here this evening. So if you're just tuning in, we're going to go over a few things. I may say some things that David will repeat, but I just want to make sure that you have us on speaker view, not gallery view. You should see one big box with me in it. Sorry about that. As opposed to a gallery of pictures. You don't want to see the gallery. Otherwise, when you're, I see some cameras are off. Obviously, they're sitting on the toilet watching the show, and they're embarrassed for that reason. And it should be. There should be a lot of shame there. But that's fine. We're not judging you. I reel back the shame comment. We're not judging you for sitting in your underpants. Speaking of people sitting in their underpants, Rick Green is coming in here just now. Welcome, Rick Green. Stefano, also not known for wearing pants. That's his reputation, I've heard, all throughout Europe. So we got Wendy Wild, Bruce Gold. Bruce, thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Stephanie, welcome back. Jessica, hey, how you doing, Jessica? Oh, awesome. Woo! She's just got off her Stitch or Twitch gaming platform. She was I could see by the headphones, and she was playing some Fortnite a few months. Can you do a Fortnite dance for us? Oh, okay, never mind. All right. Oh, there we go. Oh, awesome. A round of applause. A round of applause for Jessica. Thank you. This is how you applaud, by the way. All right. Peter, thank you so much for coming in tonight. How you doing tonight? Good, good, good. All right, Tim, thank you for coming in from Tim Santiago Converse. So where in the world is Tim Santiago? There we go. RS, thank you for coming in. How you been? Good, good. And we have Siegfried. How you doing, Siegfried? Yep. And company. Yep. So there we go. Jeffrey, how you doing? I love your hats. You guys look awesome. What tropical place I wonder they are coming from to be dressed along those lines. Clifford, how you doing? I just talked to Cliff earlier today. Cliff, thank you for coming in. And we have Theron. Theron? Is it Theron? Okay, all right, good. And Tim, how you doing? Tim Pendergrass, how you doing? Wonderful. Melody, and we have Rick. All right. Angela, wave hi to our, well, to me, because you shouldn't be looking at everyone, by the way. You're paying attention to the earlier meetings. Okay, Mike, earlier commentary. Mike, Andrew, how you doing? Andrew, your beard is magnificent. Good job on taming that. You did a wonderful job. Obviously, just brushed before the show because you knew you were going to be in a Zoom meeting. All right, Jared, how you doing? Jared, there's got a lot of I have an art degree, and that white space, it's messing with my brain right now. It's too much empty space here, but we'll work with it. All right, Rick, how you doing? Just say hi and wave and nod. That's great. All right, so fantastic. So once again, Rick, known for not wearing pants during these, so please do not ask him to stand up and go to the restroom because it's like a Scotsman, nothing down below from what I've understood. He's walked away from the camera a couple of times. It's a lot of hair. Anyway, Mike, thank you so much for coming in here. Mike, you're staying very still. Oh, it's a picture. Never mind. Okay, so yeah. Oh, there he is. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Mike is being tracked by the NSA. There's a block hovering around his face right now. It's kind of weird. There's like a heads-up display.
So Vince, should we do some pre-show telling people about what's coming up?
Yes, we will. So I'm going to make sure. Let me check to see if we have everyone coming in here is in here. So how many people we have in this room right now? All right, I think we're probably ready to go. All right, so I want to spotlight Mr. Parr here, who's our star of the show tonight. There we go. David, you're in the spotlight.
Hi, everybody. So when we start the show, during the course of the show, I'm going to need some people to participate and interact with me directly at a couple points in the show. So I will be asking for volunteers. And if you would like to volunteer and interact with me, just raise your hand like this. Vince will spot you and he will enable your mic so you can talk with me. There's going to be a little game we're going to be playing near the end of the show, and you'll need some items to play along. And I hope everyone will play along. You'll need 4 coins, and the coins are a dime, a penny, a nickel, and a quarter. So while we're waiting for everybody to get in, go grab 4 coins, a dime, a penny, a nickel, and a quarter. Now, if you've been affected by the national coin shortage, as many of us have, or you happen to not be living in the United States, then you can simply write the names of those coins on 4 little pieces of paper. Post-it notes work perfectly for this. So on those 4 pieces of paper, you would simply write dime, penny, nickel, and quarter, and those will work just as well as the coins themselves. So while we're waiting for everybody to join us, grab those 4 coins if you can find them, or write the names of those coins on 4 pieces of paper and you'll be good to go. The other thing is to make sure that you are on active speaker mode so that the Sorcerer's Lair is filling your screen and not in a teeny tiny window like that. Yeah, so the 4 coins will be needed later on in the show. I'm going to try to make some magic happen in your very own home. Yeah. So, cool. That's, I think that covers everything. Vince, does that cover everything?
Yes, it does. So let's do a bullet point recap of what everyone needs to do. All right. So you need the coins. Make sure you're on speaker view. Enjoy the show. Is that about it?
Yeah, and if you want to volunteer when I call for a volunteer, just raise your hand, and you, Vince, our host, will enable your mic.
Yep. That's right. So we still have a couple of people trickling in, but we're going to have to get this party started. We can't, just be waiting around here all night long because people have jobs in the morning, I guess, or church or something like that, or whatevs, as the young people say today. All right.
Or what?
So we're going to have to go ahead and get started with our performer this evening. You may have heard of him. He was just on there just a moment ago. Mr. David Parr is a winner of the coveted Fullest Trophy on the TV show Penn and Teller Fullest. David created and co-starred in Chicago's longest-running magic show, which was chosen by the Travel Channel as one of the top 9 magic shows in the nation, because top 10 lists are so passé. He is a frequent performer at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, California, and spent last night touring not last night. That would be amazing. It would be like Santa Claus. And he spent last year touring North America with 2 original shows, David Parr's Cabinet of Curiosities and Dark Magic. Please welcome, everyone, Mr. David Parr.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sorcerer's Lair. I'm David Parr. I'm really glad you could join me. This is where I spend most of my time thinking about magic, coming up with new ideas. And I'll show you some of the magical shenanigans that go on here. But first, let me get a good look at you. Let's see here. Oh, there you are. Good to see you. Thanks all of you for joining me. Now, during the show, if you see something that amazes you, if you feel enchanted or bewildered or mystified, the best way to let me know is to wiggle your fingers in the air like this, as if you were casting a magic spell. I won't always be able to hear you, but I will be able to see you. And that will let me know that the magic is working. So let's get started and do some magic. I am going to break the rules a bit and share with you a secret. The secret to how magic works. Now, there is a common misconception that magic works because the hand is quicker than the eye. That is not true at all. No, speed has nothing to do with it. In fact, I can move very deliberately, like this. And the magic still works. Now I'm going to tell you the real secret. Magic works because of the difference between what we see and what we think we see. Magic doesn't happen in the hands or in the eyes. It happens in the mind. And now that you know this secret, you are one step closer to being a total nerd. Congratulations, and welcome home. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Now, some of you might know this, that my background is in theater as an actor and a director, as well as a magician. So I tend to think about magic in theatrical terms, in dramatic terms. And we're going to test the theatrical skills of someone with us tonight. If you would like to volunteer, just raise your hand and let me know, and we'll do some fun little bit of theater here. Anybody? Do we see any volunteers? Vince, do you spot anybody?
Yes, we have RS, mysterious.
Hello.
RS.
We're going.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, Reese.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Great to see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
coming. Well, I know that you're an actor as well.
Yeah.
So you'll be great at this. This will be fantastic.
You say
I'm very
that.
lucky. Very lucky. Cool. Well, I have some cue cards on which I have printed common responses to seeing magic. And what I'll need you to do is to act out each of these reactions as best you can, as if you were in an old-timey radio show, right?
Okay.
Which means you can't phone in your performance.
Right.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Reese, here's the first one. Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. Here's the next one.
Ooh.
Well done. Well done. And this one?
Ah.
Nice. Nice.
Huh?
Ah, good. Good. That one was open to actor interpretation there.
Yeah.
Because it could
He
have
was
been
confused.
Huh. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. You
Huh.
went for the question mark.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Wow.
Now, this was my sister's reaction to seeing magic when we were kids.
Mom.
Mom, he's bugging me with magic.
Wow. Mom. Yay.
Yay, yay. And? All right, cool. I think we're back to this one. Excellent. Now, Reese, does any of these reactions seem to be close to how you would respond to seeing magic?
I think I would say, wow.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna dig in here and find it. There we go. This one.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you chose that one, because before we even started, I knew that you would not pick this. And you would not pick this. And not this. And not this. Or this. Or this. But this seemed to fit you perfectly.
Wow.
And that's the appropriate reaction. Thank you so much for helping out, Reese.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Awesomeness. Thank you. Now, as a magician, one of the questions I am asked most often is, how did I get started? At what point did I decide to become a magician? And for me, the answer to that question is very simple. It all began when I was 7 years old with this. This is the magic set that I received as a gift when I was 7. This is the Mattel Showstopper Showcase Magic Set. As far as I know, the toy company Mattel only ever released one full magic set like this. This was the only one. As you can see, the artwork on it is very mod looking, indicative of the time, which I believe was 69 or 70. There were many fascinating secrets hidden inside this box. Little did I know that when I opened it, it would change my life forever. I'll give you a glimpse of what I saw when I opened this box. Inside there was a magic wand, of course, because you can't do magic without waving a magic wand, right? But I soon learned that this magic wand was very clever indeed. Watch this. You see this? At age 7, I was already giddy with power. Look at this. Mom, he's bugging with me with magic. So that was a pretty nifty thing. Also, there was this little white rabbit. This could be made to appear inside of an empty plastic top hat. Dark arts. And there was this. This is an ordinary pocket handkerchief. I'm required to call it that by the Magician's Guild. Now, picture 7-year-old David performing this for a captive audience of family and friends, all duct taped to their chairs so they couldn't escape. We are told that there are 2 types of people in the audience for any magic show. The first type finds it easy to give themselves over to the experience of mystery, to the wonder that comes from not knowing. The second type thinks of magic as a puzzle that demands a solution. And they're constantly trying to pick it apart, to figure out how the magic works. This particular little illusion is very good for both types. Let's see what else is in here. I have to admit that looking through this box and looking at these items is a bit like traveling back in time. So I think next we should try and experiment in time travel. And we can use one of the items from this box. This little coil of sash cord will work perfectly. Now, time travel is best attempted in short bursts at first, until you get the hang of it. So we're only going to travel back in time a few seconds. You probably won't even notice. That is why we need to mark a point in time, like this, by severing this cord. Now that point in time is marked. To put these pieces back together, I would need to jump back about, let's say, 15 seconds to before that cord was cut, like this. Cool, right? That is definitely back in one piece. And you probably didn't even feel it. Now, when I was growing up, I was told that you should never repeat the same piece of magic twice in a row for the same audience. But I don't think the Magician's Guild is watching this show. So let's try that again. But this time, let's make it a little more challenging. Again, I will mark a point in time like this. So, now, From here, the simplest way to put these pieces back together is like this. There, I know, not impressive. However, this knot presents a challenge because to use time travel to put these pieces back together, I have to factor in the time it took to tie that knot, and then the time it took to make a bad pun about it, and then the time it's taking for me to explain this. So we'll need to jump back about, say, 60 seconds this time. Watch carefully. Traveling back in time, approximately 1 minute, right now. Thank you. Thank you. I actually wasn't sure that that last part would work, so I'm glad it did. This is the great part of this. This cord is now endlessly recyclable. So I'm going to put this back in my magic set because every day is Earth Day in the Sorcerer's Lair. Now, by show of wiggling fingers, I am going to let you choose what we do next. I can do something educational, or I can do something historical, or I can do something spooky. So, show of fingers, educational, okay, historical, oh, we got a couple there, spooky. Oh, well, no contest there. Spooky it is. Spooky it is. All right, cool. Inside this little bag is one of the key pieces of evidence from the Salem witch trials. Can you guess what's inside here? Don't worry, I'm going to show you. This was found in the house of one of the accused witches. They called it a poppet, which is an old-timey word for a simple handmade doll. Now, there are two perfectly innocent reasons why this might have been found in someone's house. First, these were common children's toys. Inexpensive, easy to make. This one's made from corn husk. If the doll gets lost, if the doll gets ruined, you just make another one. Second, there's an old tradition that was brought over here from the British Isles in which a small piece of the fall harvest was turned into a doll like this, and it was kept in the house as a kind of good luck charm to ensure a plentiful harvest the following year. Of course, the magistrates in Salem didn't go for either of those explanations. They insisted this was used for witchcraft, specifically for placing a curse on someone. I'll show you how that works. First, you have to picture someone you don't like. Give me a moment. I have someone. My 7th grade algebra teacher. Then you make a clockwise circle over the doll like this. A clockwise circle pointing downward just like this. There we go. Oh, he almost tipped over. Oh, I'm gonna set him back up here. Clockwise, clockwise. There we go. That's it. Now, There. There, the curse is trapped now. In this condition, it can't harm anyone. So you can get a nice close look at it. There's one problem with this, though. If I were to place this on my shelf, I might eventually knock it down by accident and release the curse to do its work. So instead, I'm going to be extra careful and deactivate the curse. I'm going to reverse it. That works like this. I have to make a counterclockwise circle over the doll like this. A counterclockwise circle pointing downward. I can see it's working already. Yep. Here we go. Clockwise to activate, counterclockwise to deactivate. And that's it. The spell is broken. It's just a normal, creepy doll now. Thank you. Oh, and don't worry about my 7th grade algebra teacher. I got rid of him ages ago. Now, we're going to take a little break and have a word from our host, Vince Wilson. Over to you, Vince.
Hey, everyone. I just got some popcorn.
Nice touch.
Yeah, so by the way, you'll see there's some messages will be popping up in the chat room. There's links directly to David Parr's coffee link, but David Parr does not drink coffee. He does like chai tea. And I don't know if you noticed, aware of this, chai tea is very expensive. Many a coin that there's a shortage right now. So they're just kind of rounding up. He would like to get, start his own chai garden, from what I understand. Those, it requires construction of a greenhouse and maintaining the chai leaves. Very difficult to do. It requires very specific level of humidity and environmental conditions. So in order to build this fantastic environment that David has planned to grow his own chai tea, you're going to have to donate a little bit more through the coffee link that you'll see in the chat, wherever that is in relation to my head. Okay. All right. So please click on the coffee link. And there's also a link that'll be appearing there for Poe's Magic Theater. If you are enjoying these shows and like to see more shows coming up, please help Poe's Magic as well and donate to our coffee page if you can spare a little extra. Of course, spend it on David first, but then if you have any left over, Poe's Magic, that's what keeps these shows going and justifies their existence. We have some exciting new things coming up. We have Paul Prater bringing his bizarre, spooky style of magic to Poe's next Saturday. So if you want to see Paul in person, sort of, please tune in next weekend on Saturday night for a Paul Prater with Etheric when he delves into the mystery beyond the veil. After that, we have the world's largest seance. So if you're into real spooky stuff, and I mean that legitimately, no magic, no illusion, we're going to be conducting as real a seance as we could possibly pull off for the world's largest seance on the 22nd. And after that, Christian Kajigal will be joining us for the first time at Poe's Magic Theater Online. And then we have the entire month of September, and we have something very special planned for October. That's a top secret. You're actually the first person to even hear of the hint of Halloween magic. We call it the month of Halloween promotion, and you'll see material coming out. So make sure you go to postmagic.com and at Post Magic on social media. You should be subscribing to our newsletter and for post updates, so you know about the latest news and information coming to you from Pose. So fantastic, amazing, incredible things coming up. The very best and premier virtual performances and live shows online. If you want to see more of that, make sure you sign up for all our interactivity. And with that, I think I've pontificated enough. It's on to Mr. David Parr. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Sorcerer's Lair. I'm David Parr. Glad you could join me for the second half. A little reminder, we're going to be playing a game later on with 4 coins. So make sure that you have a dime, a penny, a nickel, and a quarter, and you'll be able to play along. If you can't find those coins because you have been hit by the national coin shortage or you don't live in the States, then just write the names of these coins on 4 little pieces of paper, such as Post-it notes, and that will work just as well. Excellent. Now, as you've probably guessed by now, I was a weird kid. When most of my friends were outside playing, I was shut away in my room reading books about magic. Or, well, reading almost anything I could get my hands on. Ghost stories, murder mysteries, science fiction, and comic books. My favorite comic book was Spider-Man. I think the fact that Peter Parker was a bit of a bookworm was the appeal of that character for me. I spent hours and hours in my room reading these comics from cover to cover. Even the advertising pages with the sea monkeys and x-ray specs and build your own hovercraft. There was one advertisement that caught my eye immediately. For 95 cents, I could buy a life-sized, you control it ghost. This is what the ad looked like. So Vince, put up the ad. Hey Vince, hey Vince. Okay, there we go. There it is. It floats, it hovers, it soars through the air, always under your secret control. Just 95 cents. I mean, look at that picture. You can understand why I immediately thought, I need to have this. So, no hesitation. 95 cents cash in an envelope, sent away. Now, when the package arrived at my house, it was about yay big. Here's what the life-sized You Control It ghost turned out to be. It was a large white plastic garbage bag attached to a piece of string with a goofy ghost face printed on it. 95 cents, but one of the great disappointments of my childhood. The next item I ordered from a comic book ad, because of course there'd be a next time, was the Hypno Disc. Hypnotize your friends, perform amazing stunts, alter reality, just $1. How could I resist? $1 in an envelope, sent away. Now, I actually kept the Hypno Disc that arrived at my house. I still have it to this day. Here it is. Behold the Hypno Disc. I know. It is awe-inspiring, isn't it? Now, Vince and I have been thinking about this, and we've thought of a way for you to experience the mysteries of the Hypno Disc in your very own home. First, make sure that I'm on active speaker view. In other words, this Sorcerer's Lair should be filling your screen right now. That's the first step. The next step, we're going to enlarge this to the size of your screen. Now, if you happen to be highly prone to seizures, you might not want to look directly at the Hypno Disc. However, for the rest of you, you're going to see something very cool if you stare at your screen right now. Now, look into the center of the hypnodisc, right in the center. It's okay if you blink, but try not to shift your eyes away from the center. Now, it only takes about 10 or 15 seconds for this to work. So, listen carefully, look right at the center while I count to 10. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. You're doing great so far. 4, 5, 6, almost there. 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, look at your hand. Ah! Look at the person sitting next to you. Or look at me. Does it look like my skin is bubbling? Yeah, that's just the way my face looks. Now, some of you might be wondering if there are any lingering after effects of the hypnodisc. Let's put it this way. For the next few minutes, you might experience some mild hallucinations. But don't worry, they'll probably go away by the end of the show. The mysteries of the hypnodisc. Ooh. Ooh. Do you ever feel like you just earned a Pez? I do. It's the little things in life. So, this might be news to some of you, but all magicians are legally obligated to perform at least one pick a card trick during every show. Legally obligated. What can I say? We all signed a blood oath, you know, and the perks are great. So I have scoured the earth in search of the best card tricks, and I have found one that is very, very cool, and it has a mysterious backstory. So I will need a volunteer to choose a card. If you'd like to volunteer, just raise your hand. Vince will see you and he will enable your mic so you can interact with me. Vince, have you spotted anyone volunteering?
Ooh, there's a couple of people. We have Clifford and Mike. Let's see.
Pick somebody.
Yep, I'm asking Mike to unmute. Mike, come on in.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir.
And thanks for volunteering.
No problem. You hear me
Much
okay?
appreciated. I want you to see that we're going to use this deck of cards. This is a steamboat deck of cards. These were first printed in the 1880s. And I want you to note that all of the cards are different. It's not the same card repeated over and over or anything dumb like that. I am going to give these a bit of a shuffle, like so. Now, Mike, I am going to flip through the cards like this, and whenever you like, say stop, and that is where we will stop.
Stop.
Right here?
You know what?
Mike,
That's
can
good.
you see the card there?
Yes, sir.
Memorize it.
All righty.
Lock it in your memory. Have you got it?
Got it.
Excellent. Concentrate on that card. It helps me if you say the name of the card over and over out loud. No, not really. That was a mentalist joke. Share it with your friends.
Huh.
Just concentrate on the card and repeat it in your mind. Are you doing that?
Yes.
Excellent. Mike, there's one more thing that I'd like you to look at here. This handkerchief is at the center of a mystery. You see, history did not record the name of the magician who invented what I'm about to show you. Here's what we do know. It was invented sometime in the late 1800s during the vaudeville era in the city of Chicago. So in that sense, this could be considered a Chicago classic. Mike, are you still thinking of the card?
Yes.
Concentrate. You're thinking of a black card. Am I right?
I am.
Yes, I am. A black card in the suit of spades. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Of course I am. This is my job. Now, this is the coolest part. Watch this. One card has emerged from inside the handkerchief. Mike, would you please tell everyone in a nice clear voice what card you've been thinking of from a deck you never even touched?
The 3 of spades.
The 3 of spades?
Yes.
That is why this is considered a Chicago classic. Oh, and here's the weird part. The rest of the deck, 51 cards, is still wrapped up inside here. And there are no holes in the cloth. Do you see any holes in the cloth, Mike?
I do not.
No, that's because there's nothing there. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's my legal obligation fulfilled. Great. Now, I had a book that I was fascinated by when I was a kid. It was a collection of reprints of old-timey magic posters. Posters from the golden age of magic between, say, the 1850s and the 1950s. And I noticed something about these posters almost immediately. Many of those old-timey magic posters were kind of spooky. For instance, this is the magician Surveille Leroy, causing the ghostly figure of a woman to float over the heads of the audience. Definitely not a garbage bag. And this is Herman the Great being heralded by a coterie of goblins, imps, trolls, bats, and snakes. Oh, and a dragon. Just a regular Saturday night for that guy. And this is the magician Harry Keller, teaching a troupe of playful imps to perform stunts for his amusement. Like you do. I think what captured my imagination about these posters when I was a kid was that they seemed to imply that supernatural forces were at work in the performances of these magicians. And to 7-year-old David, that was irresistible. When I was 8 years old, I talked my family into participating in a seance in my room. So you could see where I was at when I was a kid. It was my mom and my dad and my sister, who's a little older than me, and my grandparents. And we all gathered in my room and sat in a circle on the floor, and everyone joined hands. No, wait, actually, first I had to persuade my grandfather to put out his ever-present cigar. Then they all joined hands, and I dimmed the lights like this. There we go. And we called on the spirits to join us. The only sound in the room was this little music box, which made a creepy little tune like this. And that's exactly what happened when I was 8 years old. Okay, let me turn the lights back up here. Whew. My older sister would never enter my room again. So, let's try something that we can all do together as a group. Get those 4 coins that I told you about earlier. You should have a dime, a penny, a nickel, and a quarter. And of course, if you don't have those coins handy, just write the names of them on 4 little pieces of paper, and you should be good to go. Now, we're going to arrange these coins in a row from left to right. Starting with the dime should be at the left end of the row. So lay that out in front of you. The next coin over to the right should be the penny. The next coin to the right should be the nickel. And then the quarter should be at the far right end of the row. So from left to right, dime, penny, nickel, and quarter. Now, choose one of those coins by placing your finger on it. I'm not looking, so I can't tell which coin you've chosen. Now, don't do this next part until I tell you to. What you're going to do is spell the name of your chosen coin and move your finger once for each letter. So let's say I chose the nickel. I would go like this. Starting with the coin to the left or right, I would go N-I-C-K-E-L, like that. As I'm spelling, I can switch direction as many times as I want, left or right. There are only 2 rules. I cannot skip over any coins, and I can't move my finger off the ends of the row. So, go ahead, spell the name of your chosen coin, starting with the coin to the left or right, and moving your finger once for each letter. Very good. Now, you've moved your finger, and you might be touching the same coin you started with, or you might be touching a different coin. There's really no way for me to know. However, even though I can't see those coins, I get the sense that you did not end up on the quarter. So keep your finger where it is, but use your free hand to push the quarter away. We won't use it anymore. Now, make one more move to the right or to the left, and then stop there. Excellent. Your finger's touching a new coin, and I get a strange feeling from this coin, an eerie feeling. Concentrate on that coin. Yes, yes. Use your free hand to push the other 2 coins away. Keep your finger on that coin. Yes. What all of these coins have in common is that they bear the image of a former president. However, only one of those coins bears the image of a man who reportedly experienced a strange dream in which he foresaw his own funeral. That man is Abraham Lincoln, whose image is on the penny you are touching right now. Spooky, no? Excellent. And the coolest part of this is I finally found a use for this giant coin I bought in 1972. 1972. Yay. Eventually, everything has a purpose. So, we are nearing the end of the show tonight, but before we all vanish into our separate spheres of cyberspace, there's one more thing I'd like to share with you. Since this show is being produced by Poe's Magic Theater in Baltimore, I think it's appropriate that it should include a tribute to one of my favorite American authors, Edgar Allan Poe. When I was a teenager, I took the time to memorize one of Poe's poems. It was a poem called Alone, and I still know it by heart. Alone was not published during Edgar Allan Poe's lifetime. In fact, it was published many years after his death. And because of that, at first there was a bit of controversy about whether or not he had actually written it. But nowadays, scholars seem to agree that no one else could have written it. Let me get some mood lighting going here. Abracadabra and alakazam. That's better. So, this is the poem Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. It goes like this. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope to see all of you again in the Sorcerer's Lair. Thanks also to Vince Wilson for hosting tonight's show. Much appreciated. Don't dash away to some corner of cyberspace just yet. We always do a Q&A after every show. So if you have a question you've wanted to ask a magician all your life, now would be the chance to do it.
Yep. So I will be moderating the Q&A as time to get ready. So if you want to ask some questions, so by the way, David, the reason I took a moment to find a volunteer earlier is because we have so many people in the room tonight. I had to scroll over to look at everyone, the possibilities we had here.
Well, if you have to take off, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah.
Stay safe and stay well and stay connected. Thank you.
All right, let's take a look. So if you have a question for David Parr, raise your hand, and I will keep it in the air for like a second so I can go back and forth between these screens. And feel free also, you can now put your screen on gallery view if you'd like, so you can see other people raising their hand and talking or interacting with us. But please raise your hand. Let me know if you want to ask David Parr a question about Fool Us, or Chicago Magic Lounge or the Magic Castle, or what kind of chai tea he wants to grow in his greenhouse coming up. So if you'd like to ask, yeah, or ask a question about any of the inspirations for his effects tonight, please raise your hand now. Let us know, and I will ask you to unmute your screen. All right. So we have
thank
Rick,
you, Bruce.
Yeah. So Rick Cunningham has a question for you.
Hi, Rick.
Hello, David. Just a wonderful show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, especially during these unusual and uncertain times. My question is, which comes first for you, or does it work both ways? You think of a great story, you're just a master at that, or you have an effect in mind? Could work both ways, I suppose. I'm wondering which way it works most often for you.
That's a great question. And actually, the creative process for me is different every time. Sometimes it starts with an effect that I'm just very fond of. Sometimes it's something I saw when I was a kid. For instance, there was an effect that I saw Doug Henning perform when I was young in his live show and on his television specials, in which he took a mirror and after knocking on it to prove it was solid, placed it inside a bag, then thrust a needle through the mirror multiple times, and then took the mirror and bent it in half, and then straightened it and pulled it out of the bag, and the mirror was still solid. And I will never forget the effect that had on me. It made the hairs on the backs of my arms stand up. It was such an eerie thing to see him bend the mirror that way. And that always stayed in my head. So about maybe 15, 20 years ago, I remembered that experience, and I thought, I want to perform that. I want to perform that effect. So I did a whole bunch of research on it, and I ended up adding it to my Halloween show. And so if I have an effect in mind, then the challenge is what's my script going to be? What sort of dramatic frame am I going to build around it? And for me, I decided to just do as much research as possible about the folklore surrounding mirrors. And what I found out was that there's a mountain of folklore about mirrors. You'd be hard pressed to find another object in the household that has more folklore and magical belief attached to it. So I ended up with a mountain of stuff, all these, weird things like, it's bad. We all know it's bad luck to break a mirror, but did you know it's bad luck for two people to gaze into a mirror at the same time? Or for a bride to see her reflection after she's fully dressed for the wedding ceremony, or that to allow a baby to see his own reflection before the child is 1 year old can cause anything from rickets to crossed eyes, and so on and so forth. I mean, at that point, after doing that research, the challenge was to whittle it down so it would be about a 7-minute piece. And so a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor, and I just kept the juiciest tidbits of folklore and magical belief attached to mirrors. So that's the one way it can work. The other way it can work is I'm fond of, I think of a piece of dialogue and, or a presentational theme. And one of them, for instance, is one of my favorite movies is The Third Man. It's a movie starring Orson Welles. I believe Carol Reed directed. And in it, Welles plays this sort of shady character named Harry Lime. And he's a war profiteer. And so I've loved that movie. And Graham Greene wrote the script to it, who is an author I've greatly enjoyed reading over the years because some of his work is kind of spooky. And apparently Orson Welles improvised a monologue in that movie. It was not in the original script, and it was about the Borgias. And And it went like this. In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace. And what did they produce? The cuckoo clock. And it's a brilliant piece of writing. Apparently Wells improvised it and ended up in the movie, and I've always loved it. And so I made a note of it on an index card. I write ideas on index cards and keep file boxes full of them. And I wrote a note of that little speech on an index card. And years later, when some friends of mine were putting together a show about politics, it was an election year. I think it was 96. And we had proposed to do a show that was a collection of all like original skits and scenes on the theme of politics. And so I was going to do a piece of magic. And as I was going through index cards, I ran across that index card and I thought, oh, this is great. It's on the theme of politics. I can use this. So then it was a matter of finding the magic effect that would fit that theme. And what I ended up with was doing something magicians call a bank night, or the acid test, where 3 people are invited up from the audience, and there are 4 golden goblets on the table. And I've told them that one of them is safe and 3 of them are poisoned. And now they each have to choose one, and whichever one's left will be mine. And after they've all chosen cups and maybe exchanged cups with one another or with me, we look inside, and each one of us has a piece of paper inside the cup, and it turns out that I've got the safe one, and they're all dead. And because it's a fun thing, and so that was an example of something that went the other way around, where I had ideas for the script and the theme of it first, and I had to come up with a magic effect that fit it. Yeah. But part of the fun of the creative process is that there's no formula for it. And so it's different every time. It's surprising every time. Things can lead in directions you never expected. So you end up with a piece at the end of it that was not what you had originally intended to create. And that's always super fun. I think that's the joy of it, is to make discoveries and surprise yourself along the way. So I think it's a good thing that the creative process is never the same way twice. Does that answer your question, Rick?
Sure does, David. Fascinating. Thanks again.
Thanks for the question, dude. Anybody else have a question?
We have a question from the chat room. All right,
sure.
It's a private message. So Jenny asks and says her video is not recording, which I believe is code for I'm doing something illegal. Can you ask David?
There's no judging in the Sorcerer's Lair, dude.
That's right. Yeah, it's like you're fine. Yeah, no one will tell.
Yeah.
Can you ask David, why did they create the Magician Guild?
The Magician's Guild?
Mm-hmm.
Because people, because people have a tendency to want to like gather in a weird little elitist clubhouse and make declarations and sort of lord it over the peasants. It's a natural human tendency. It's kind of an unfortunate thing, but this is how people behave. So they gather together in little groups like that, so they can have their own weird little clubhouse. And this is how magic organizations happen. Fortunately, organizations like that are changing slowly over time and becoming a tad more progressive. It's taken them a long time. Some magic organizations, for instance, were still not allowing women into them until the 1980s. And that's kind of a shameful thing. And but now things are getting things are gradually getting better, and there's more representation and diversity among magicians in magic organizations and at conventions and things like that. I've seen the shift happen. I mean, when I attended magic conventions when I was a kid, you know, when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, there were no women at them. It was extremely rare. And but now I see female performers at magic conventions all the time. So things like that are changing, and it's all to the good, because art forms can't move forward unless there's a diversity of voices involved in them. They stagnate then, and that's not a good thing. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Yep. So I think it was a loaded question, David.
Okay.
But all right, which is good. That's fine. I said that's some fun history of magic to do tonight's evening.
Well, and it's important. It's an important thing to consider, you know.
Yep. Thank you, Jenny, for your your question, and also we will keep it secret whatever you're doing behind the scenes. All right, so raise your hand, everyone, in the air, like you just don't care, if you'd like to ask David Parr another question. I had nothing going for the rhyme with Parr to finish that one, but we'll work on that.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right?
Of a single rhyme with Parr.
Yep. Raise your hand in the air as if you don't care, and ask a question for David Parr, who is tonight's star. There we go. See. Yep. Well, I just need another moment to think about it.
Looks like Jessica has a question.
All right, Jessica, unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. First of all,
hi, Jessica.
Hi, David. Thank you for the show. So that's not an easy question that I have, but what do you think will be the impact of the COVID pandemic on the future of magicians? Will there be more virtual shows? And what do you think?
It's hard to say, Jessica. I mean, that's the $64,000 question. We're on a roller coaster ride here, and none of us knows how long the ride's going to last and where we're going to end up at the end of it. So anything at this point is sheer speculation. And so I don't know. I mean, when are people going to be comfortable gathering together in the enclosed space of a theater? I mean, and when you think about it, not just for the audience, but for the cast of a show. I mean, dressing rooms, control booths, lobbies, these are by definition small enclosed spaces. So I just don't know how that's going to play out. And how long before we're going to know how that's going to play out. So my guess is that, you know, plenty of magicians are trying this sort of virtual show format. I've watched some of my friends do it. I've watched lots of other magicians do it. I've seen them making mistakes, and I've seen them make discoveries, and I think, you know, it's sort of it's uncharted territory. And even I was a little reluctant at first to step into this territory. I just thought, well, how do I do this? My background's in theater. To me, the definition of a show is a bunch of people in the same room at the same time. So this is kind of foreign to me. Aside from the television appearances I've done, this is a little odd, and it took a while for me to sort of wrap my head around, how will I do this? How can I make a connection with people across a screen? One of the things that served as an inspiration to me was remembering watching those Doug Henning television specials when I was a kid. He managed to make a connection with me across a television screen. And I think part of why he was able to do that was sincerity. I think sincerity was the engine that made that train run. That whole kooky persona he had, the kooky sort of hippie persona, magic is all around us if we just look, that was not a put on. That was the real guy. And you got that sense when you watched him on television and in his live show. That was the real person. And so I think that's why he was able to establish a connection with me when I watched those shows. So I thought, okay, there's a way to do this. And I think part of it is to be sincere and invite people in to get to know who you really are, and not just as a performer, but as a person. So I decided to enter this, to sort of dive into the deep end of the pool and try this virtual stuff. I think there's lots of territory here that's yet to be explored and discovered, because magicians are just starting to explore it. And I'm certainly making new discoveries all the time. One of the things I discovered early on in doing this is that this format affords an advantage that's difficult to accomplish in a theater. And that's that because of the nature of this, when I'm talking to the camera like this, it looks as if I'm sitting right across from you, within, a few feet, and I'm talking directly to you. So it creates a kind of intimacy that's a little difficult to accomplish when the audience, the front row of the theater, is 25 feet away from you. So this intimacy is an interesting advantage. And so there are other advantages, technical advantages, also afforded by this frame around the screen. So I'm just starting to make some of those discoveries, and I'm sure there's plenty more discoveries to be made by magicians. I wonder if some of this will stick even after the pandemic has settled down, in that, corporations who would normally have paid to fly me into their conference, to have me perform at their conference, whatever it is, and pay for my airfare and my hotel and my fee for performing, might realize that this is a way to save money and go virtual on things like that. I wonder if in the corporate sphere, this would be a money-saving tactic that will stick even after the pandemic has settled down. But that remains to be seen, if that's the case. I kind of hope it will, because like I said, I think there's a lot to be discovered here for magicians, and so that's kind of not exactly a complete answer. There's a lot of I don't know in there, but I hope does that work for you, Jessica?
Well, definitely. Thank you so much for this insight. And also thank you so much for putting together this virtual show.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
And Jessica, for the great Fortnite pose, you get a free ticket to an upcoming show. So just send me an email. Let me know what show you want to do.
See?
I have to admit, I have never played Fortnite.
But you knew what he was talking about.
That's right.
So yeah, it pays to be a nerd. It really does.
That's right.
Nerd culture has become mainstream culture, which is a great thing. The nerds have inherited the earth, and that's fantastic.
So we have another comment from the chat room, David. Someone just wants to hear a fun Eugene Burger story you might have, because this is from Jay Frazier.
I have many, many memories of Eugene. Eugene was a huge influence on me when I was young. I met Eugene in my first year of college. He's a well-known Chicago magician, mainly a close-up magician, and who worked in bars and restaurants around the city of Chicago. And when I was growing up, my grandparents lived in Evanston, which is a suburb just north of Chicago. So I spent a lot of time in Chicago when I was growing up. It always felt like a second home. And I always had friends there. And Eugene was one of them. I met him in my first year of college, and we hit it off right away, mainly because his background was in theater as well. And he was the first magician I ever heard speak about magic in theatrical terms. He talked about having a script, and he talked about rehearsal, not just practice, but rehearsal. He talked about having a costume. He used all these terms that I knew from theater. And so I just thought, wow, he's speaking my language. So we had that common language right away. And later I started to wonder, why don't all magicians talk about magic in these terms? Why is that? So I started to look into that more. But he was the first one I encountered who spoke about magic in theatrical terms. And so we became fast friends, and I would often visit Chicago and hang out with him over the years. One of my favorite stories about Eugene, Eugene was known to smoke marijuana rather frequently. He was a stoner. He grew up in the 50s and 60s when that was starting to become a thing. And he was in college then. And, that the college campus was surely rife with marijuana smoking. So bearing that in mind, there was a magic convention in Chicago called the Invocational. And it was a convention devoted to bizarre magic, which is magic that has a spooky or occult themes. And so all these weirdo magicians gathered in Chicago. This was in the early 1980s, or mid 1980s, and so on one of the shows, there would be performances and seminars and lectures over the course of a weekend. And on one of the shows, one of the magicians, or two of the magicians, it was a duo act, and they were like mind readers. Gary Inglesi and Denny Laub, I remember. And they did this piece at the end of their show to close out their set. They did a piece where there was an envelope hanging over the stage, like a bubble envelope that was suspended from a cord over the stage. And they had someone from the audience name a favorite movie, a favorite celebrity, and a famous magician, a favorite magician. And someone from the audience named Eugene Berger as the magician, and named Casablanca as the movie, and named Blackstone Jr. as the celebrity. So everybody's like, okay, where is this going? So they get a chair, and they stand on the chair, and they grab the envelope down, and they open it up, and inside is an old VHS videotape. And so they roll out an AV card with a television and a VCR on it, and they pop this tape into it. And when the screen comes alive, it looks like a scene inside Rick's bar in Casablanca. There's a table there, and there's chairs, and there's a ceiling fan, and sitting at the table is Eugene Berger. And he performs one of the effects he was famous for doing, called the animated matchbox, in which a matchbox resting on the back of his hand comes to life and moves around and opens itself, and a match pops out of it, and then he uses the match to light the candle that was on the table. So as we're watching this happen, it's dawned on everyone watching that the guy in the video was not Eugene Berger. It was one of the duo of mentalists made up to look like Eugene Berger. So he had this fake beard. I used to jokingly call him Rabbi Blitzstein because he had this big beard, and he had a bald cap on and wearing fake glasses, and it looked pretty good. It took a minute or so for me to realize, oh, that's not Eugene. That's Denny or Gary, like, made up to look like him. So he does this little effect, and then he says he says something to the camera. I can't remember what it was. And then at the end of the scene, the other guy dressed as Blackstone Jr. leans into the frame and does play it for me, Sam, or does the line from Casablanca. And that's the end of it. So all three predictions came true of the audience's choices. So after the show, everyone's milling around talking and congratulating the performers, and Eugene comes up to me and he has this very disturbed expression on his face, and he says, "David, I have no memory of recording that video." and I realized, oh, he's not joking. He really thinks that was him in that video. And so am I going to be the one who ruins the joke and tells him, dude, that was not you. You're just kind of too baked to realize? Or do I just let it be a weird thing that happened to him and not tell him? So I decided for the latter. I think always deepen the mystery. That's the job of the artist, as Francis Bacon once said. Always deepen the mystery. So I let it ride as, wow, that's weird. That's all I said. Wow, that's weird. And Eugene walked away, and I don't know if anyone ever told him that was not him in that video. So Eugene got a different show from the rest of us when we were watching that, which is kind of the cool thing about magic, because magic is created in the mind. Everyone watching is getting a different show because it's filtered through our perceptions, it's filtered through our worldview, it's filtered through our past experience and memories, it's filtered through our expectations. So every person in the audience is constructing a different show in their minds. And rarely as a performer do I get a glimpse into how the audience is processing my performance. So when they do provide a glimpse, I always tune in and listen, because sometimes the way they describe, people from my audience describe what happened in my show is not even close to what actually happened. It's often much more impressive than what I actually did. And of course I take credit for that, 100% credit for it. So yeah, Eugene got a different show from all the rest of us.
So someone pointed out today, by the way, today is the anniversary of his passing.
Oh, I did not realize that. Mm-hmm. Well, here we are. Yeah. Yeah, he was a massive influence on me, and still is. I mean, many of the things that I learned from him and talked about with him are still in my work, and to this day. I'm fortunate, I think, very, very fortunate in that I've gotten to meet many of the people I admired when I was young, whose work I admired. And I've gotten to meet them, talk with them, get to know them as people, and thank them for the inspiration they provided to me. And that's a lucky thing, because it doesn't always happen.
So we have another question from Theron. How do you choose material for a virtual show? How do you structure the show? Yeah,
it's an interesting challenge. I always go back to index cards. This is my method for constructing shows that I've used for years and years and years. I have ideas for magic effects. I have ideas for scripting. I have ideas for images that I like, sort of things that I can use as connective tissue between scenes, like showing people the posters from this magic book and so on. I have all those ideas on index cards that I keep in file boxes, many of these. So when I'm constructing a show, I dig through those file boxes. I also write up some new cards, usually, because I usually have a few ideas that are just in my brain. I tried out a few new ones tonight, actually. The thing with the cue cards that Reese participated in is a new piece. Thank you. Once I have like a stack of these index cards, I lay them out on the floor, and I start arranging them. And what I've discovered is that I start to see connections between things that I didn't notice at first. And I'll see like, oh, this idea is connected to this one, so these two pieces should be together. And this piece should be down here because that's an idea I'm going to get into later on. And so I start to see a structure forming. If I get stuck, and sometimes I do, and in a sort of set list and a structure for the show doesn't present itself to me, what I'll sometimes do is just take those index cards and shuffle them and let randomness now have an effect on this process. And what I've discovered is sometimes I make a surprising discovery. Like I'll see a piece, an index card will randomly fall in an opening position in the show, and I'll think, I would never have chosen that as an opener, but I think I could make that work. And so I'll experiment with something that I might not have experimented otherwise with. So randomness can sometimes be a help. It can sometimes get you past a block. I remember reading an interview years and years ago with, again, one of the major influences in my life, and that was Monty Python's Flying Circus. And I grew up watching those shows when I was a kid. And I read an interview with the Pythons, and they said that it was Graham Chapman and John Cleese were writing partners, and they would get together in an afternoon or in a morning, and their goal would be to have a sketch written by lunchtime. But often lunchtime would arrive and they had a blank page. And so what they would do was they would pick a book randomly off a shelf, and they'd open it to a random page and point at a word. And now they would try to incorporate that word they tried to write a skit around that word. And this is how like llamas and lemon curry and other randomness like ended up in their writing. Those were random words from a dictionary. And it was their way of breaking the block and moving forward in the writing process. And I always thought, well, that's an intriguing method. It's to sort of use randomness as a way to get around a creative block. So I've often done that, of shuffling the index cards. So what eventually I end up with is a structure for the show. I've got the cards laid out in the order that I think I want them. And then I usually end up with a stack of cards that are extra, that like either don't fit the theme of the show, they're ideas that don't fit the theme of the show, or it's too much material, it won't fit within the time slot that I'm allowed. So I take those cards, I put them back in the file box, and I save them for another show. And I will probably end up using them at some point down the line. The advantage to using this method for creating shows is it keeps the creative process fluid and open and playful, longer than if I were to just type out a list of magic that I wanted to perform. You know, if I type a list, it's already in a structure because it's in an order as I type it. But if ideas are on separate index cards, I can shift these around. So the creative process is fluid and in what I would call play space rather than workspace for longer. And that's very useful to me. I want to keep the early stages of the creative process in play space for as long as I can, because that's where discoveries are made. That's where experimentation takes place. So if you happen to be a creative person who does shows or things like that, and this method makes some sense to you, I should give credit to David Lynch, because this idea came from reading a David Lynch interview. He talked about how he writes movies, and he said he goes to a diner and he gets all sugared up on milkshakes, and he takes a stack of index cards and writes one idea per card. And at the end of it all, when he has a stack of 70 cards, he has a movie. And so if that method of creating or in structuring shows and choosing material seems to make sense to you, I'd urge you to try it, because it's been very, very useful to me over the years. I honestly don't know how else to construct a show now. So I have, it's not nearby, it's probably over there on my desk. I have a stack of these index cards that has all material that I think would work on a camera. And it's ever expanding, that stack of cards. As I think of things, it's like, oh, I can do the thing with the cue cards or whatever. I'm adding to that pile. And that's all material I will eventually, for the next show, lay out on the floor, lay out all those index cards and start shifting things around and choosing things. So, so there you go. That's how I do it.
All right, David. Someone suggested that you should mention you're doing a lecture at Bizarre Hauntings.
I am doing a lecture at Bizarre Hauntings.
Yep. For those who don't know.
Yeah, I've been doing this thing at Magic conferences for a few years now that I call the Magic Catalyst. And it's a way for us to sort of help one another move forward in the creative process, because we all encounter those blocks where it just feels like this is going nowhere and it's frustrating. And so what we do is at these conferences, we've gotten together, the magicians bring in an idea that they're working on. And it could be, you know, they have something, they don't have a script, or they have a partially written script, or they have an effect they're working on and they haven't quite worked out the method for it completely. Something where it's unfinished and they feel like they're stuck. And they show us the idea, and then we all collectively work on it. We all contribute ideas and suggestions for what might be a way forward, because, you know, we all have a different set of experiences and a different knowledge base. And at some point you realize, if we pool all of that knowledge of all the books I've read since I was 7 years old about magic, and all the books everyone else has read since they were 7 years old, and all the shows we've done and the experience we've amassed, it's an incredibly powerful tool. It's amazing what can be accomplished. And so we've done that at a number of conferences where we've really gotten some great work done. I have pieces that I'm performing now that are the direct product of these seminars, because I brought in something where it was like, I don't know where to go with this. I don't know what to do with it. And we collectively got me unstuck. And so and I still, you know, we always write down the ideas on index cards, And so at the end of it, each of us ends up with a stack of index cards with ideas on it, so we can go home and work on this stuff. And I still have the index cards from many of those Magic Catalyst workshops that I've conducted, because I'll look at some of those ideas a year later and go, oh wow, why didn't I notice this one? So Vince was going to be hosting his Bizarre Magic conference, Bizarre Hauntings, in Baltimore in the fall, and because of the pandemic, he's had to move it to a virtual, make it a virtual conference. And I have to say, Bizarre Hauntings is one of the best magic conferences I have attended. And I've attended many of them, and it's such a friendly, welcoming atmosphere. People want to help. And I've seen some wonderful creative work at that conference. And these are weirdos like me. It's always great to be among kindred spirits, people who grew up into the same weird stuff I was into. And I told a story to one of the guys. He performs under the stage name Vlad. He performs as this vampire character, this gothic vampire character. And I told everyone, I can't remember how the subject came up, but I told the entire group that one of the disappointments of my childhood was there was a model kit that came out when I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8, and it was a miniature dungeon. And if you bought all of the kits, they would assemble into this larger miniature dungeon with like a rack and an Iron Maiden and all this stuff. And I wanted that model kit so bad. And I remember seeing it fully assembled in a hobby shop that was near our house when I was growing up. And I asked my parents if I could have it for my birthday. And I remember this was one of the very rare times when my parents did not encourage my weirdness. They drew the line on this one. And I remember exactly what my mom said. She said, "No, David, it's too morbid." and so I never got that model kit. Flash forward to I'm at the Bizarre Hauntings conference. I tell this story. The next year, Vlad has for me one of those kits. It's called the Hanging Cage. It's like a gibbet with a skeleton inside it. And he was like, "Because you never had this when you were a kid." And I was like, dreams do come true. So that's the kind of conference it is. It's fun to be among kindred spirits like that. So in moving this conference virtual, I'm still going to do the Magic Catalyst workshop. And what we're going to do is have people sign up and bring in and bring to it an effect that they're working on for a virtual performance. So they'll share with us what they have in its unfinished state, and then collectively we'll work on trying to move it forward and get it finished. And I think that'll be fun, because the virtual realm presents some interesting challenges and parameters that we have to work with. So when is the conference happening, Vince?
The conference is the weekend of September 10th, from that Thursday, which will start off with a virtual tour of Poe's gravesite. And we'll discuss the stories of Poe's mysterious death and the conspiracy theories involving how he might have died.
Yeah.
And then it'll be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with lectures every single day, and some stuff mixed in, some virtual magic shows, and we'll have The Black Cat Lounge will be virtual this year.
Place to hang out with Paul Prater.
Hang out with Paul Prater, that's right. Everyone is encouraged to bring a drink with them, and since you're at the safety of your own home, you can just, drink yourself blind, basically. Yeah. So
then it's a bacchanalia.
That's right.
Here's another great story about about the Bizarre Hauntings. One night Vince runs a tour of the cemetery, the churchyard where Poe is buried, and we went there late at night, and we decided to have a picnic at Poe's gravesite. And so we found a place that had vegan pizza, because I'm vegan, and that would deliver late at night. And so we had vegan pizza delivered to Poe's gravesite. And we had a pizza picnic there at Poe's grave. And the guy who delivered the pizza, after a while, we saw a car pull over to the side of the street about a block and a half away, and just sit there with his lights on. And I thought, is that the delivery guy? So I called him up and I was like, hey, is that you? About a block and a half up? And he's like, yeah, I can't find the house. I was like, oh no, we're at the cemetery that's right on the corner. So he, with a very perplexed expression, delivered the pizza to Poe's gravesite, and we had a fantastic picnic.
If you're not jealous of that story, then you're at the wrong magic show.
Exactly.
So we do have another question for you, by the way, and I put links to Bizarre Hauntings into the chat if you want to follow the links. Yeah,
good. Yeah.
So we'll have information up there soon for subscribe to the newsletter on that page too, and you'll find out updates for when we're going to have the registration fee has been waived because there's no ballroom to register for. It's a virtual show. However, I do want to point out to everyone real quickly that there is tickets available for a raffle right now, which will be put together hopefully toward hopefully next year's real conference in reality at the Lord Baltimore Hotel, which is where the Haunted Library is 700 meters below. He's sinking down further into the ever sinking. That's right. So there's a raffle now, and prizes will include prizes and magic effects from Gemini Artifacts, Dan Baines, Lebanon Circle, Christopher Taylor, myself, and
these are all well-known creators of magic.
That's correct. They're established, brilliant creators. So we do have another question. I want to get to that before we run out of time. So David, great show from Jared, he says.
Thank you.
I'm a magician. I love performing your effect, the one you performed on Penn and Teller. All right. So apparently he had purchased that. Have you ever been watching a magic show where a performer happens to perform one of your effects? What's that like to see someone else perform something you've created? Now, before you answer that question, I want to talk about the David Parr and Vlad, another David Parr and Vlad story. So I'm picking Bizarre Hauntings 1. So we're combining all these stories together. Bizarre Hauntings 1. I picked David Parr up to take him to the first Bizarre conference. And I'm a script writer and I'm a seance performer. So one of my most difficult, and some of you may have read the script, so one of my most difficult scripts to perform is Gloomy Sunday, based on the song. All right, it has several difficult effects. It's a very dramatic effect. It requires theatricality on the part of the performance. When done right, it can create an amazing emotional response, if I do say so myself, from the audience. And the first time it's ever been performed by anyone I know who could perform it well was Vlad. But I missed half of it because, David, you want to finish that story?
No, I don't know where this is going.
I picked David Parr up, and we were stopped to get vegan pizza again.
Oh, oh, really?
Yeah, I missed half the performance because we went to get pizza. I was hungry too, so it's not a big
Oh,
problem.
wow.
Yeah, I missed, but I caught the bottom
Oh,
half of
thank
it.
you.
And went really well with the. You remember that we stopped at that? What was it called? The place in Gettysburg. It was a place you like. They make those
Yeah.
handcrafted pizzas.
Yeah,
I remember.
I don't remember, but yes. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry to have made you late for your own
Oh, it's all right.
Vince.
But it was worth it because it was good
I've
food.
occasionally seen some other people performing my work. I've published some of it and made it available to magicians. And, you know, it's fun because, I mean, this is what theater is. You don't improvise Shakespeare. We're all saying the same words. If you're an actor, if you're cast in that show, the script is locked in. And so it's up to the actor's interpretation of those words. And that's what makes the performance. And so much of a performance rests on the performer's tone and posture and attitude. And that completely change the nature of a performance, even if you're doing the same script. So I've seen people perform my work, stuff that I wrote, that I perform as rather kind of dark and eerie, and I've seen other people perform it as very light and funny. And that's their interpretation of that piece that I wrote. And it's kind of interesting to see how other artists interpret my stuff, because it's often a way that I wouldn't have thought to, you know, that just wouldn't have occurred to me to do. And sometimes they change the techniques involved because they have other techniques that are more familiar to them, and so in a way it becomes a different thing. It becomes someone else's expression, and that's all to the good, right? Because I've read and reinterpreted many of the work of many other very fine magicians over the years, and so I'm grateful for all the published work that magicians have put out there for one another. I mean, that's how we learned when we were young, and often by emulating our idols, the people we admired. You know, there's a massive body of literature about magic that stretches back to the first book in the English language on the subject of magic was published in 1584. And so there's, from 1584 onward, there's this huge continuum of development of magic. And it's kind of fascinating to dig into that and reinterpret it for a modern audience or a modern performer. So I have no doubt that long after I'm dead, some magician somewhere is going to have one of my books on his shelf. He's going to be reinterpreting my work, and that's a great thing. That's our share of immortality.
Yeah, and don't feel bad, by the way. That was more Paul Boudini and Karina getting stuck in customs, if you remember.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
that was horrible. Yeah,
they were there. What? It's 2.5 hours we waited. Was it almost 3 hours?
Airport in DC, wasn't it?
Yeah, Reagan International. I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was dreadful.
Yeah. Salute.
You know, maybe out of the pandemic, maybe the upside of the pandemic is going to be that air travel becomes more pleasant again. Like, I'm old enough to remember back when air travel was pleasant. I mean, remember that?
Yeah.
And my sister's a little older than I am, and she remembers, like, as a girl, like dressing up to go on a plane flight, like wearing a dress and gloves and stuff,
wow.
little pillbox hat to go on her first air flight. So yeah, it's kind of weird to look back and think, wow, air travel used to be kind of nice. And now it's horrid from start to
Well,
finish.
David, next time me and you fly together, we'll get an address and gloves and stuff. And
I'm all for it, dude. Why not? You know?
yeah, why not?
We'd probably be turned away by security. I have a feeling.
Yeah.
But
Everyone
yeah.
looks good in black. He's got to remember that.
Yeah, always black. Always black.
All right. So, any more questions? David with a pillbox style hat. Someone suggested in there. So.
I'll work on it. On it.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of growing the hair out a little bit, so that might.
This is my COVID due. Yeah, it's good. I have not had hair this long in decades, and it's kind of weird. It feels kind of weird. Every once in a while, I become conscious of it, like brushing against my back, and it's kind of like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I haven't had that feeling in a long time.
We got to modernize it a little bit, get like a hipster man bun back there, and just tie it up.
That will not happen. I can promise you this. There will be no man bun.
Oh, PBR's on me if that happens.
No, there will not. It's gonna go full mad scientist pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
It's already getting there. So whatever. 1.21 gigawatts.
That's a look you could work out. I think. I think
I
that
could
work.
make it work. Yeah.
All right, the Michael had to bail out. Sorry, the Michael. Yep, you
Thanks
have a good
for
night.
joining us.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Vince, do we have a date for the next Sorcerer's Lair?
The closest one we could probably do is the first weekend of September. So that's what I'm looking at right now. So, yep. So
So we're talking, let's see, the 5th.
yes.
Let's make that a date.
All right.
The Sorcerer's Lair will return September 5th.
Yeah. Remember, everyone, every time David does a show, there's going to be a new effect in there. And I saw a couple of people in the chat had mentioned they would have liked to have seen the volunteer up on there. Well, that is something we are working on, and that will be a feature in our next episode. So, yep, you will be able to have volunteers up and, at the same time with David. It wasn't something we had a feature ready for the
with
earlier
space
show.
age technology.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're joking around. By the time they come around with apps that actually pull this off successfully, it'll be over. Then it will be done and moving on to live shows. And I hope that's kind of true.
Yeah, but
yeah. But
we'll
beta testing
see.
and all that. It's gonna be like a year away before all that stuff comes out. So everyone, thank you so much. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Now, if you're a magician or interested in magic to a certain degree, and you have to be invested, like you had to want to do a magic trick or be invested in behind the scenes. Jessica, do you do magic? You do? Yes. Okay, good. All right. I know there's quite
you
a few.
have to have at least had a life-size You Control a Ghost or a hypno disc at some point in your past.
That's right. Then you can stick around for the after show. I will put a link in the bar here. There's a top secret magic show not magic show, magic get together. So
we just kind of hang out, talk about magic.
I'll put a link in there, but it's for magic folk only. You had to have an invested interest in magic, or you have to. It starts in literally a minute, but I'm going to have to hurry up and get this link in here.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. It really means a lot to me.
It does.
And,
it really does.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Yep. Coffee links are in the chat. Help David out get his chai tea garden.
So we're gonna log into a different Zoomy room for the
that's how that
after.
works. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, we're going to log into a room that way. So when we had different performers every week, you can.
Okay.
Here's the link with information. All right, so it'll start in about less than 5 minutes. I'll log in a moment. But
So where's the link going to show up?
In the chat room right now.
Ah, okay.
It's in the chat. So if you can't find the link, send me an email or a message, and we'll get
It's
you
a
in
Google Doc.
the Google Doc has the link inside. It has information how to.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
You're clever.
that's right. So that way you can read the rules. If you don't like what you see, get out.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
All right, everyone. Arrivederci. Do svidania. Aloha.
Thank you so
Auf Wiedersehen.
much.